I'm Lisa Leight. I'm Chief Marketing Officer here at Convoso, and I am joined by the illustrious Eric J. Troutman of Troutman Amin. Eric, thanks for being with us today.
You know, I'm very rarely called illustrious these days, so thank you. And you actually are looking illustrious, if not transcendent. Great to be with you.
Well, thank you. It was great to have you at the Convoso Lead Gen Regional Roadshow, which happened earlier this week, and it's great to sit down with you again today. I want to talk, first of all, do the usual disclaimer. This is not legal advice. We always advise folks to seek the counsel of a top-notch compliance attorney. We have some good names to suggest. So let's jump right into it. Today, we're really faced with a lot of hurdles in the regulatory environment, a lot of unknowns in terms of what's coming next. But we wanted to talk with Eric and talk about what can be done now in terms of supporting compliance. So, Eric, I know we've got a number of things. Tell us what can folks do in this current environment to be as maximally compliant?
So there's a couple of things going on right now as we talked about at the roadshow. We know that first, the FTC, that's the Federal Trade Commission, has just changed its guidance under the telemarketing sales rules and has essentially said it is now forbidden, illegal, to sell leads for the purposes of having somebody use a pre-recorded call for marketing purposes. So if you are a lead seller, or if you are a company that makes outbound calls in order to sell leads, or you're a company that would like to sell something to a consumer, a lender or an insurance company, you can no longer use pre-recorded calls if you're going to send those calls to a lead, to something that you purchased from a third party. It doesn't matter, even if your name is on the form, or if it was just one name on the form, or if it was bought directly from somebody. You can no longer use a purchase lead to make an outbound pre-recorded call for marketing purposes. So right now, the first thing you can and should do is stop using pre-recorded calls for, again, marketing purposes. You've purchased a lead.
And so that would include leaving a voicemail. Is that true?
A pre-recorded voicemail, yeah. Now you could, pick up your phone, buy a lead, pick up the phone, say, hey, John, it looks like you're interested in a 30-year fixed mortgage. Leave me a voicemail, call me back, here's my phone number. That's still okay. But what you couldn't do is have that recorded and then press a button and have that left on a voicemail. That would get you into trouble.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. And there's a lot of talk between first party versus third party. Tell us about the next one, about first party websites.
So now, as we pivot away from the FTC, which again is only looking at the TSR, that's only pre-recorded marketing calls. Remember, the FCC, that's the Federal Communications Commission, has its own rulemaking proceeding that's that's being taken on right now. And one of the things that they're looking at potentially is aligning with the FTC and saying, just like the FTC has said you can't sell consent, the FCC might also say that you can no longer sell consent if you're going to be using a auto dialer, a pre-recorded voice, or if that phone number is on the national DNC. That consent would not be valid. So a lead buyer could not rely on that consent, could not use regulated technology, could not call a phone number on the DNC if it purchased that consent. So what do you do? What do you do? If you are a direct-to-consumer marketer, if you're a brand, you need to be thinking right now about making a more robust online first-party website presence, right? WellsFargo.com. That now needs to be the place where consumers are going to provide you their contact information directly on that branded website. If you are a lead seller, well, what do? Understand, you can no longer be LendingTree, right? If this NPRM comes out the way it might, you can no longer be Bob's Great Lending Rates.com, right? Instead, you've got to now start pivoting to using good creatives, good social media ads, good perhaps billboards, regular media, whatever you have to do to drive and generate traffic, to drive it either directly to the brand's website with attribution, maybe like an attribution URL, or through your own website where you can start the process of getting people to fill out forms, information, and then integrate right with that first party website so that that data can transfer over. But ultimately the consumer has to press the consent button on the first party website, on the brand's website. So it's a big shift right now. Today, as you know, people fill out a form on any old website that you can generate, and then you sell that data lead if the seller's name or the lead buyer's name or the provider of goods and services name is on that form. Today, that is commonly sold. Today, a warm transfer is commonly made, right, where somebody will get them on the phone, qualify them based on that data lead, and then transfer, right? Those activities, again, depending on how the NPRM breaks, those activities might be completely illegal here in just a couple of months. So start thinking about how can we move to drive to site campaigns. It's a really big, important pivot for people to have in mind right now.
Got it. And you mentioned NPRN, which of course is the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. Any idea when we might be hearing the responses on that?
Yeah, I expect we'll have a ruling by the end of the year. It could be as early as October or November.
Okay. Now, the third one, I mean, this should go without saying, but clean up misleading or deceptive pieces of their funnel. Tell us a little more about that suggestion.
Yeah, so the FTC, right, has recently announced a telemarketing sweep. Traditionally, the FTC did very little around enforcement with regards to telemarketers and with regards to leads, but that is all changing right now. That's part of the telemarketing sweep. They brought over 100 lawsuits in conjunction with the DOJ, and they are really looking to crack down on people who are using what they call dark patterns, right? Tricks on the website to get consumers to go through a funnel, through a flow, when they're being promised something that's not being delivered, or when they don't actually have to provide their consent in order to get something, yet the website makes it look like they have to, right? The really small fine print versus the really big offer, and you get people to go to the really big offer and not go through the fine print that might be better for the consumer. Or, of course, just the more standard, the disclosure is too small, the font is too small, no one can read what the consent says, right? All of these sorts of things. You can think of any dirty trick, just think of it as a dirty trick or a trap. Some might say, well, we're just easing friction in the funnel. No, you're tricking consumers, all right? And the FTC has said, no tricking consumers. If the consumer is going to go through that funnel, then they have to know exactly what they're getting themselves into. Of course, that's where things like the reach standard, right, come right into play. You've got that reach standard met, then you know you're safe, and you know the consumers are not being tricked. There's no dark pattern. But for those of you that are not in reach, that don't have that standard that you're adopting, it's a little bit less black and white for you. But you've really got to be thinking to yourself, am I tricking a consumer here? And if you are, you got to pull that out. I'm just telling you, you have to be vicious with yourself because the FTC is being vicious right now. These lawsuits, these consent orders, I mean, it is brutal. They are not messing around, guys.
Well, with a term like dark patterns, that sounds ominous and scary. But you know, we're always promoting to act responsibly, dial responsibly, with the mind of the consumer in mind.
So really does take compliance very, very seriously, and I love to see it. You guys are a great technology platform for the compliant company, no question.
Right. I was just on the phone earlier with our chief compliance officer and talking about how to get the word out on certain things. Okay, we're at the 8-minute mark. Take us home. What's the final recommendation?
Well, there's lots going on out there, and again, this is not by any means a comprehensive list. But aside from the FCC and the FTC's incredibly important rulings and proceedings right now, we know the states are proliferating a ton of rules, and these rules have a lot of parts, right? There's hair all over these things. They're not quite the same. They're all a little different. They're really hard. They're kind of icky to get into, but sometimes you have to. But you've got to be paying attention, right? What state rules are applying to you? Are you using a dialer that's regulated by the state? Is the state that you're calling into, does it have its own DNC list? Are there established business relationship rules that protect you in that state? What does express written consent look like in that state? And importantly, are there restrictions in terms of the hours that you can call into that state and the number of times that you can attempt to make contact in that state? All of these things you have to keep in mind, but I think sometimes there's vendor solutions that can help with at least some of that. Am I right?
Yes, there are. That's a good segue. We at Convoso, we recently launched a special purpose-built tool. It's the only purpose-built tool to support compliance with this. It's we call it State Tracker, and it's to support and allow the capability to set up rules to govern compliance with all of the restrictions on the number of contacts within a given period, usually with the 24-hour period. And that's one of the things that with Florida, they came out with a really stringent rule, and then a lot of it got back down, rescinded. But the maximum of 3 contacts per a 24-hour period is still in place. And
it lives on. It sure does. And it lives on in Oklahoma. It lives on in Maryland starting the 1st of next year. And there's other states that have those restrictions in place as well. So it's great that there is a solution out there to help people with this.
Well, Eric, thank you for joining me today for this quick call. And thanks for all that you do to support the industry and encourage compliant, responsible practices out there.
Always here to help.